Enlightenment is said to be the freedom from attachment. And what are the things that we're attached to? We already spoke about the body, the feelings, the perceptions, and today we're going to speak about mental formations. It is important to notice over here that volitional formations and mental formations is harder to notice because they're a little more subtle, and without meditation experience, they can go completely unnoticed by our awareness. And the process from the body, through feelings, through perceptions, to the mental formation can take up just few seconds. Once somebody bumped into our body, we felt it as unpleasant and we maybe perceived it, labeled it as disrespect. The action, mental action to push back arises. And once this process set into motion, it is very difficult to stop it. Buddha himself said that karma is the volitional formation, is the mental formation itself, because from here, from our mental idea, from the impulse to act, all other actions are stemming. Mental formations are all our thoughts and ideas and impulses and intentions, what we want to do. Everything that we do first is born in our mind, even if we are not aware of that process. And as per usual, we're gonna look at the illusions that we have in regards to those mental formations. Like, for example, I am a mental formation. I tend to overthink. I am an anxious person. We identify with this habit in our mind to think more. But as we spoke about it before, it's not engraved in stone. We can change it. It's the way we are conditioned, but it doesn't have to be, the end of it all in our reality. Another type of illusion that we can identify with is I have a mental formation. For example, my anger is so out of control. When we start to notice and dig deeper, the anger is coming from cause and effect. It's not something that we possess. Those things arise and cease according to their own nature. And if we gain insight into that, we can affect it indirectly. Or we can live with the delusion that I kind of exist in the mental formation. For example, I feel trapped by my indecisiveness. And again, it's something that can be changed. We don't have to make it the end of it all. If you're satisfied with it, there is no need for you to change it. But if you want to change something about it, there is so much freedom there if we learn at first how those illusions manifest. They usually manifest in either too much or too little. But before speaking about that, our love to, self-identify and label ourselves with the way our mind works sometimes can entrap us. Yes, sometimes it's good to name a disease. For example, I have an anxiety and we know what kind of medication probably will help. But at the same time, there is way much more freedom when we notice anxiety as a process that is happening. Sometimes it comes up, sometimes it goes down. And when we learn a little more about this process, we learn that there is no need to fully identify with it and get stuck into that. We're getting more chances to be free, not completely from it. Sometimes we can learn how to exist with it, but it is not everything about you. You're more than your anxiety. And when we have too much of mental formations, we usually tend to overthink, overanalyze, figure out everyone. And when we sit in meditation, we probably do a lot of thinking and again, figuring out how to meditate correctly and blah, blah, blah. And there's just a lot of activity going on in our brain. And if we want to correct that, sometimes people can get too little. They just stop using their even thinking process, thought process, just be aware and that's it. We are living in the world where our mind is a very useful tool. And if we learn how to use it, when to use it, and use it for good, why would we want to stop thinking at all? And more than that, if we try to reduce our mental activities, we become avoidant, indecisive, and it doesn't speak freedom to me. And as per usual, wisdom, the middle path lies not in the physical middle in between these two, but in our ability to see cause and conditions, cause and effects. What leads to what affects what in which way. When we see a bigger picture and we learn a little bit more, for example, anger, everyone speaking about anger, that it's such a bad thing. first thing that I always try to emphasize, anger is here because it's needed. Anger is given to human beings as a tool to protect the boundaries. And if you learn more what your anger tells you about you yourself and your communication with others, you can figure out how to make anger your friend, how to use it for the good, for yourself and for others. It doesn't have to be a destructive force. It becomes destructive when we push it down, and then it just bursts out. I don't think it's wholesome. And here, the very important practice, we can again practice it in two ways. One in daily mindfulness and another in stillness meditation. In daily mindfulness, try to notice that will require you having already a good, stable sitting meditation practice when you can stay longer with, whatever is going on inside your mind. So then throughout the day, you can observe. For example, you want to deal with anger, right? And someone says something to you, and just notice that this very strong sense of I comes, and I don't like it, and I want to respond, and just feel this urge, this impulse, and just observe it. You don't have to stop it. You don't have to act on it or not act on it. Just give yourself a few seconds of observing. Oh, this reaction, and this is how the feeling of I is created very, very strong over here. And that's it for the beginning. Later on, if you're able, maybe stay with it a little longer, even if you unfortunately decided to act on it. But just notice how long it lasts. Does it last the whole day? Probably not, right? And if it's just a few minutes, can you see how it passes away? Usually, we're just jumping on tops. Oh, this is anger. Oh, this is regret, right? We have the top, but we never see how it fades away slowly. And then from there, for example, regret arises. And our ability to stay with impulse from the beginning through the middle till the end will be a very, very good to step out because our train of thought usually runs in circles, and when we find the stop, it's like, oh, that's the exit. And very similar practice goes when we're doing sitting meditation. At first, when we just sit down, there's a lot going on. Our brain tells us, I need to do this, I need to do this, I want to do this. There's a lot of plans, and we just observe them, right? Later on, when things are kind of slowing down, we can notice this is a period of silence, and this is a period, oh, I need to do this and this and this. And again, just ride with the wave and observe how long it lasts, what did trigger it, what it triggers in return, and just see the cycles of it. And eventually, of course, you would be able to stay longer without acting on those things. Whatever mind tells you to do, I need to do this, I need to do that, you're just like, okay, that's how it feels like to want to do things, to have an urge to do things. I can observe it, I can stay with it longer. And eventually, like a running dog that you put on a chain, hopefully you're not doing that, but eventually stop pulling, is tired and lays down to rest. Your mind is like, okay, whatever I'm trying it to do, that human being doesn't listen to me, so I might just rest too. And this is the process, this is the moment when you are existing beyond your mental formations. And if you can exist beyond your mental formations and be free from them, how can we identify myself as mental formations?